Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at Grustas Brady on X. You can follow me there. And today, it is time to move forward. You hear this phrase all the time in the NFL, next man up. And that is what this Niners season is about now, next man up. But who are those next men? Well, I've got a bunch of names that I'd like to talk about today. And of course, stick around until later in the show because we've got to lay out a path forward for this team. How do they continue to win games? How do they make the playoffs? We'll get into all of that today. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below. Leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So what do I mean by next man up? Well, in order for the 49ers to keep winning football games, they can't play like they did against the Buccaneers. There are players on both sides of the ball who have added responsibilities and added expectations now that both Bosa and Warner are done for the year. If these players can step up and play well and carry the team, then I think the 49ers will absolutely get back to their winning ways and make a push for the playoffs. If not, then I think this year could start to get pretty ugly. But I do believe in these 5 players, and let's start with the most obvious one. It's Tatum Bethune. Bethune obviously is taking over at the Mike linebacker spot, so just from a schematic perspective, he's in the middle of the defense every single play. They don't call it the middle linebacker position for nothing. He's got so many responsibilities. He's got to shoot the gaps and sniff out run plays and screens and fakes and, all that eye candy that offenses have nowadays. He's also going to have to shut down the middle of the field in coverage, which is not easy to do in today's NFL. So many talented offenses, so many talented play callers. And on top of all that, Bethune's going to be delivering the defensive plays in the huddle. That's a ton of responsibility for a guy who's only in his second season in the NFL. But all of a sudden, he's one of the biggest X factors on the team right now. Deommodore Lenoir had a really interesting quote about Bethune, actually. He said the other day, quote, "Fred used to always make Tatum break down the team, so I've seen the leadership in him already. Just hearing him talk, I know he's made of the right stuff. I got the utmost confidence in him." End quote. That's promising, right? It's one thing to say something bland, like, yeah, he's a great player, he's going to be great. But to come out and really talk about his leadership, especially, that gives me some hope for Tatum Bethune. Now, speaking of Lenoir, he's the next guy I want to talk about. In that interview on KNBR when he was talking about Bethune, Lenoir also talked about the leadership void on the defense without Fred Warner. Lenoir said, quote, "Fred was the vocal piece, so now that that's gone, someone has to fill in, like myself. I'll be holding everyone accountable and make sure we all working as one," end quote. And he's right. Someone is going to have to fill in, not just from a defensive play calling perspective, but from a leadership perspective, right? Lenoir has always been a trash talker. He's had back and forth beefs with Jackson Smith-Njigba and Kyren Williams already just this year. But he needs to direct that vocal energy to his teammates. Instead of just trash talking the opponents, make sure your guys are in the right spots and make sure you can communicate what you're doing and what they're supposed to be doing to your teammates. Now, it's not all going to be on Lenoir, right? You can't expect a corner to be on top of the defensive line's alignments, right? That's not his job. It's not his responsibility, right? Nor should it be. But Lenoir can help Bethune greatly on the back end. He can certainly make sure that the secondary, the corners and the safeties, make sure they're all lined up and they're ready to go and they're playing coverage to the best of their ability. With no Fred and no Kittle and no Brock Purdy on the field, the Niners are kind of in an energy deficit, right? They need vocal, loud, aggressive energy, and Lenoir needs to be the source of that. Now, speaking of Brock Purdy, he's actually the next guy on my list. The turf toe situation, obviously not good, right? And it makes sense if the injury is holding him back, and I get that that's partially why he played poorly against the Jaguars. But plain and simple, if Brock is going to play, he needs to play better. 5 turnovers in 2 games is just not going to get the job done. It's time to play clean football, and it's time to win for Brock Purdy. Brock went up against 2 of the top 10 defenses in the NFL when he played the Seahawks and Jaguars. The defenses coming up on the schedule soon are not as impressive, though, I'll say. The Falcons, Texans, and Giants have each had their struggles, but, they're not pushovers, right? The Niners are really looking for a direction right now. They're looking for an identity. Their previous identity was decimated by injuries. And when there's lots of big theological questions like that, you got to look to the quarterback to be your leader. Mac Jones has been impressive this year, but Brock is the quarterback of this team. Even Mac will tell you that. And if he can get healthy, play well, and lead this team to a couple of wins over the next month, then I think this team's direction becomes a lot more clear. It is time for Brock to step up, and it's time for him to take the helm, take the reins, and steer this team in the right direction. Now, he can't do it alone, right? He could certainly try, but football is a team game. There's 11 men on the field at once. And so I need to see Demarcus Robinson step up. Juwan Jennings has had a disastrous season at receiver. Ricky Pearsall has been excellent, but he's been hurt. Kendrick Bourne has really flashed, but he's also made some really stupid mistakes. So it's going to fall on Robinson to elevate his game and provide some real stability, which he's been unable to do so far. That's why the Niners brought him in on a 2-year deal this spring. Stability, reliability. How many times have we talked about that on this channel, especially at the wide receiver position? And I know he can do it, right? He's done it for years with the Rams. I don't need 10-catch, 100-yard games from Robinson, but I do need him to be open on third downs, and I need him to catch the football. When his number is called, he needs to be there to answer. He's got to be able to respond to this adversity. And with all these issues and all these question marks with the defense, we're going to need the offense to step up and really carry this team. More on that later. But Robinson is a big part of that, and he needs to start producing more than he did against the Bucs. Now, I've got one more guy to bring up, and it's the third-round rookie linebacker Nick Martin. Martin has yet to play in an NFL game for a top 100 pick. That's certainly not ideal. And it's clear why, right? He's got a lot of learning to do when it comes to NFL coverages and adjusting to the speed of the pro game. However, that was true in July as well. And what did we see from Martin in the preseason? Well, he got better every single game. Better and better and better. That first preseason game was a disaster from Nick Martin. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was real bad. But once the clock hit 0 in week 3, Nick Martin was one of the best 49ers on the field. It is rare to improve your game that drastically over such a short period of time. It just is. It's rare. And of course, it was the preseason, right? These teams are calling vanilla plays and they're playing backups. But I have to imagine that we see a bit of Nick Martin over the rest of this year with Warner out. And a while back, Saleh brought up this fact that Nick Martin is going to have to, quote, master special teams before he can get in on any defensive snaps. And we'll see if he can do that, right? But Nick Martin is unquestionably a guy with talent. His speed and his violence are phenomenal. One of his best traits was his ability to blitz and cause real havoc for quarterbacks. Blitzing and causing havoc for quarterbacks. I wonder if that could help a defense who can barely rush the passer. I wonder. And yes, he's small, right? And he's developing in coverage. But I'm not sure there's a defensive coordinator in the league that I'd trust more than Robert Saleh to cook up some formations to get Martin in a position to succeed. And we've seen what Martin can do when he gets reps. He gets better and better and better and better. Hopefully that sort of improvement can translate to regular season games because the Niners could really use an explosive, talented linebacker right about now. So that's my list of next men up. You've got Tatum Bethune, Diamador Lenore, Brock Purdy, Demarcus Robinson, and Nick Martin. Those are the guys who I think really need to step up and start making winning plays for this football team over the next few months. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down below in the comments. Now for our last segment, let's zoom out a little bit. Instead of focusing on specific players, let's look at the team as a whole. Let's take a macro approach. How do the 49ers get to the playoffs this year? It's certainly still possible, despite what you may believe. They're 4-2, a third of the way through the season. And the parity in this league is as high as we've seen in a long time. There are weird upsets happening every single week. So how do the 49ers stamp their ticket and secure their spot in the postseason? Well, we touched on this earlier, but this team's got to find their identity. For the first 5 weeks of the season, it was bend, don't break defense, it was grit, and it was clutch plays in the fourth quarter. Without their two best players on the defense, I don't really think that this is a viable strategy anymore. You can't just win ugly. So you've got to pivot now. What can this team do? Well, they can play decent special teams, they can sort of stop the run, and they can pass the ball. They can really pass the ball. So here's my vision for this team. The offense has to be the backbone going forward. We're going to need touchdowns, and we're going to need efficiency from the passing game. We need 3 touchdowns, no picks from Brock Purdy. We need 74% completion. We need that sort of stuff. Now listen, we can't just air it out on every play, right? You're not going to run 4 verts. It's just not going to work. It's unsustainable. But what we can do is pull from the classic Bill Walsh West Coast offense. Use the short passing game in place of the running game. Screens, designed quick throws, get the ball out fast and get the ball out often. We're already kind of doing that. I want to lean into that even more. You've got to put Purdy in positions to succeed on third downs. I want the Niners to become an elite third down team. I think that should be a focus, because if they can do that over the rest of the season, that's going to make it way easier to win games if they really dial in on third downs on both sides of the ball. Or really either one of them. Even if it's only one side of the ball that becomes excellent on third downs, it's going to help a bunch. If guys aren't open on those big third down plays, let Purdy make a play with his legs. Get him involved. Get him out in space. Run bootlegs. Run crazy stuff like that, right? Let Purdy make plays if the play down the field is not open. Getting back guys like George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall, Ben Barch, and eventually Brandon Ayuk, that's all going to help with this sort of offensive shift. I have very little confidence in the run game right now, I'll be totally honest. So Kyle's going to have to get creative with some passing concepts. I really like that hook and lateral that we ran against the Jaguars. I thought that was great, right? Now, I'm not advocating for trick plays like that one, but I am advocating for creativity. And luckily, Kyle Shanahan's got plenty of that. And then on defense, it's got to be built on fundamentals, right? This is a very young defense. It's a defense with a lot of turnover, a lot of new guys, a lot of guys who were not here even 2 years ago for the Super Bowl run. So it's got to be fundamentals with Robert Saleh. Stop the run and don't miss tackles. Those have got to be the two big things, right? Stop the run and make your tackles. I think it's really got to be down to basics with this unit. Get to third and long, right? Even third and medium, just get to third down. All it takes is one nice run stop and one incompletion to get to like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, right? That's not that difficult. That is a pattern that is sustainable, right? That's something you can build a defense around. Get stops on first down, get stops on second down. You know, guys like Alfred Collins, Mykel Williams, D. Winters, Malik Mustafa, those guys are going to be instrumental in that sort of game plan, right? It's very simple stuff. And now you're at third down, right? Now you get to third. And this is where it starts to get much harder, right? I think the third down defense has got to be blitz heavy. I think it's got to be exotic. And I think it's got to be fresh. Most importantly, it's got to be fresh. This team, as it is currently structured, can't get pressure with just rushing 4 guys. They just can't do it. It doesn't work. You got to start adding wrinkles, right? The NASCAR package that they've been using all year, I think that's a good start. But even that is still kind of vanilla because you're still just rushing 4 guys. And if your guys can't get pressure anyways, then that's not really going to help, right? I want weird alignments. I want overload blitzes. I want simulated pressures. I want like CJ West lining up over a tackle. I want Bryce Huff over the center. I want Nick Martin on the edge, right? I want weird stuff. I want Saleh and Kasurik to get in the lab and really cook up something nasty. I think they might have some secret weapons that they've been holding on to. And if that is the case, it might be time to pull out those weird packages. Maybe this is where we see more Nick Martin, right? Maybe this is where we see some safety blitzes. But the reason that I want to see this stuff is because it's weird, because it's different. And as a result, it becomes much more difficult to beat. I mean, think about this week. If you're going up against Michael Penix on Sunday and you throw a blitz at him that he has literally never seen before in his entire time playing football, then you are much more likely to force a mistake out of him. You're way more likely to succeed doing that than just rushing 4 and hoping your guys get pressure, which they've shown they're not very good at. And listen, this is a very boom or bust strategy. This strategy is not going to work against everyone. You're going to give up some huge plays and some huge games. But because this offense is now the backbone of the team, the defense just has to work enough times for the offense to come out on top. It becomes a sort of mini game, right? How many stops can you get on defense this week? So that is my vision for the team's new identity. Build around the passing game on offense and just get to third down and throw some wild stuff at the wall on third down on defense. What do you think? Do you think that I'm onto something here, or is my philosophy just completely nonsensical? Will Niners coaches listen to me? Do you think we'll see any sort of stuff like I've been talking about on Sunday? Let me know down below, and let me know what you thought of this episode. Leave a comment, leave a like, and of course, let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas, at Grustas Brady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.